Everybody has heard of Alfred Hitchcock. Some of the most famous films of his are The Birds and Psycho, which is the original serial killer slasher film. But the film I'm going to talk about is Rope, which is far less known, but I think is one of the most experimental films that I have ever seen. Some directors like Martin Scorsese, Stanley Kubrick and Paul Thomas Anderson feature long choreographed takes as set pieces in their films. Rope is shot and edited to look like the whole film is one giant take. It's pretty interesting because the cameras in those days could only record for around 10 minutes at a time. Each take would have to end in some clever way. For example, the camera would zoom in on someone's back and then fade to black. The next shot would emerge from its back to create a seamlessly unedited transition. It's a really interesting idea which I have never seen attempted again, even with this film being made 64 years ago. For a film which has essentially one setting, it must have been a nightmare to make, both in planning and in filming. The camera would need to carefully move within this cramped setting, the lighting would need to stay consistent, and the actors would need to perform perfectly each time. Any one of these things goes wrong, you need to start right from the beginning again. So this film is technically outstanding and inventive, but what makes it even greater is the story and the characters. The film reminds me a lot of Edgar Allan Poe's short story The Telltale Heart, which I am sure had a huge influence on it. The premise of this short story is a guy kills another guy and hides him under the floorboards. A policeman comes to inspect the disappearance of this person. The guy tries to answer his questions calmly, but the guilt is eating away at him and he can actually hear a heart beating from under the floorboards. The guy tries to answer his questions calmly, but his guilt is eating away at him and he can actually hear a heart beating from under the floorboards. It becomes so unbearable that he confesses the crime. So like that story, this film starts off with a murder. Spoiler alert, Rope did it. Two young men, Brandon and Philip, strangle their classmate David with a rope. They place his body in an old chest and they proceed to host a small party with friends and family of David's invited, and also of their old teacher Rupert, played by James Stewart. Like a Hitchcock film, there's lots of suspense built up when guests ask what is in the box, and some even try to open it while Brandon and Philip attempt to lead them away. It's so interesting to see their reactions as the guilt is starting to build and they just try and keep level-headed. The last thing I'm going to say about the story is that Rupert starts to suspect that something is wrong, but Brandon and Philip don't seem to realise it. From a plot's perspective, it seems like it would be a simple story, but as a film format it's actually quite a complex story. You really do get sucked into this story. What's this character's motive? How much does this character know? Did he give anything away to that character when he said that? You constantly have to put yourself into people's heads and try and think from their perspective. And that to me makes it really engaging and interesting. So there you have it. A great story, overshadowed by its outstanding technical achievement, and again overshadowed by Hitchcock's more famous films. This film is a real diamond in the rough, which proves that Hitchcock was a master of his craft and really pushed the boundaries of what is possible in film. So the last thing I have to say about this film is that the editing really enhances the story, as the illusion of no edits makes it seem more natural and a bit more real, as if it was actually happening in front of your very eyes. And to be honest, what other film goes that far to show you this? Well, thanks for listening.